Hey, it's Mark here with your video thought for the day. This week I've been trying to find some lessons in the life of King David that are useful to me, and hopefully that means useful to you. Today I want to deal with one by special request. A friend of mine said, talk about Absalom. Now, Absalom was one of David's sons. And you can't talk about Absalom without just discussing what an absolute mess David's family life was. David got a little carried away in terms of the women in his life, multiple wives, had the terrible affair with Bathsheba. It was not a good thing. Made some really poor choices after he got her pregnant, ultimately causing her husband to be killed. David didn't do that well with all of his children. And maybe one of the best examples is Absalom. Now, Absalom was one of David's boys, and Absalom had a sister, Tamar, and a half-brother. Same dad, David, but different mother. And the half-brother raped Tamar, the sister to Absalom. And Absalom was furious and planned this event, waited 2 years. I think he may have been the first one with the old motto, vengeance is a dish best served cold. And so he waited 2 years and then killed his half-brother, murdered him. Got revenge for the raping of the sister. David, of course, very upset. His son's a murderer. They go years without talking, without seeing each other. Finally, there's a reunification of father and son and maybe some measure of peace, but not really, because Absalom quickly started working around the edges of David, his father, the king, to get the people to support Absalom for king. Absalom evidently was a really handsome fella. He'd only cut his hair once a year, and he had like so much of it, it weighed a bukus of weight, whatever that might have been back then. But by the way, his hair and his head get him into trouble at the end of the story. So Absalom basically sets up a coup and goes to Hebron, declares himself king, or has other people do it for him, and comes back to Jerusalem, and David recognizes that his son is going to take the crown. David and some followers slink out of Jerusalem, go up the Mount of Olives, and as his son comes in, the new king, the self-appointed king, the leader of the coup d'etat. That's not the end of the story. Ultimately, David is king and his son Absalom is king. Both have their armies and they go to fight, they go to war. There's a lot that's involved in the story, but David's armies win. David says, don't hurt my boy, be careful with my boy. But as Absalom's riding off, Mr. I got long hair gets his hair caught in an oak tree and his horse keeps going and he's hanging there. And ultimately, David's general, Joab, goes and throws javelins into him and kills him. And David's just weeping and mourning. Now, this is David who's got the heart after God, who's the king, who seems to have so many things going for him, who slayed Goliath, who killed Philistines, who wrote so many psalms and songs to the Lord and sang to the Lord and had the Spirit of God. And his family was a wreck. So where does that leave me in thoughts for the day, as someone requested me to speak about Absalom? It leaves me with the following. Number one, I know it's right. I know with all of my being it's right for us to pursue the heart of God. Number two, I also know that how we live makes a difference. Paul said it this way to the Galatians, God is not mocked. Don't be deceived. Whatever you sow in your life, you will reap. There is some level of that recognition that in this world, If you stick your hand in the fire, you're going to get burned. And to the extent that David sowed into his family sin, deception, and violence, he reaped a whirlwind. He reaped a whirlwind of those things. There's still forgiveness. You can read Psalm 51 where David says, against you, O Lord, you alone have I sinned and done what is wrong in your sight. You're right when you judge me, but please don't take your spirit away from me. Have mercy, Lord, in your kindness. Blot out my transgressions. All of that's true. And you can have forgiveness with God, but that is not to be equivalent to a license to do anything you want. Because what we do still has consequences in this life. And so I want a heart for God, but I want to live within His will. I want to diligently pursue His will, and I want to invest in my family and my friends. Heavens, I want to invest in the world, the love of God and His holy, righteous path, which produces a life of good fruit. The first psalm, I'll end with this. It talks about the blessings that come from the people whose heart is meditating and thinking about God's character expressed in His law. It says, they will be like trees planted by rivers of water, who bears fruit in its season and whose leaf doesn't wither. And that's what I want to be. So today, my thought for the day, a heart after God, but service in His holiness. Tomorrow we'll conclude our talks about David. This is your video thought for the day.